Tonight we begin with the story of Mohammad Amir, an 18-year-old man from Karachi who was recruited and trained by terrorists from the Lashkar-e-Toiba. They call themselves the Jamaat-ud-Dawa. Amir, during interrogation, gave a detailed account of how Hafiz Saeed, in the guise of humanitarianism, is recruiting young men from underprivileged backgrounds to further his cause for hate and perpetrate terror on India.
He is living proof of Pakistan's support to terrorism. His name is Mohammad Amir, a Lashkar-e-Taiba operative captured from Jammu and Kashmir last month.
तो मैंने वहाँ पर कितनी बार देखा कि कुछ फौजी टाइप बंदे आते थे सिविल वर्दी में, जो मुझे लगता था कि वो ISI वाले हैं, तो वो आते रहते थे, उसके पूरे मान को गाइड वगैरह करते रहते थे। तो उसके बाद लास्ट में हमें वीडियोस दिखाई गई जिनमें कश्मीर के हालात के बारे में था कि वहाँ पर आदमी बहुत जुल्म करती है, आप उनके साथ जिहाद करना है, और हमें हाफिज सईद और रहमान में के बयानात सुनाए जाते थे जिससे हमारा जज्बा जिहाद को बढ़ाया जाता था। और हमें एक इंटरव्यू में बताया कि आप मोहम्मद सईद लश्कर-ए-तैयबा जमात-उद-दावा और फलाह इंसानियत फाउंडेशन का मेन चीफ है।
Mohammad Amir was trained by the LET between 2015 and 2016. He was trained to carry out attacks in Jammu and Kashmir and was launched into India from At Maqam on the line of control. Amir was trained to handle AK-47s, rifles, pistols and grenade launchers. During interrogation, Amir revealed that the Pakistani army gave cover fire during their infiltration. Amir's training was being carried out by Hafiz Saeed's Falah-e-Insaniyat Foundation, a front whose infrastructure is used by the Jamaat-ud-Dawa to induct terrorists. This is just the latest evidence that exposes Pakistan's continued support to terrorism. The evidence is on your screens, but will Pakistan pay heed? Bureau Report, WION.
WION has accessed a 20-minute-long confession of Mohammad Amir, who was arrested by India's security forces. In the first clip that we are showing you tonight, Amir will describe his background and how he ended up in the hands of these terrorists.
मेरा नाम मोहम्मद आमिर है, वालिद का नाम मोहम्मद रियाज। हम 6 बहन भाई हैं, जिनमें 2 बहनें और 4 भाई। मैं कराची पाकिस्तान बल्दिया टाउन का रहने वाला हूँ। गली नंबर 14 में मेरा घर है। मैंने 8वीं क्लास तक स्कूल पढ़ा है, जहाँ पर जो मेरे घर से तकरीबन 15-20 मिनट की दूरी पर था। अब वो स्कूल बंद हो चुका है। उस स्कूल का नाम मूनलाइट सेकेंडरी स्कूल था। मेरी 2 बहनें शादीशुदा हैं और एक भाई। वालिद साहब कराची पुलिस में थे, जो अब पैरालाइज हो चुके हैं, जिन्हें शुगर था, उस वजह से उनकी टांग काट दी गई। तो वो अभी घर पर होते हैं और वालिदा भी मेरी हाउस वाइफ है, वो घर पर होती हैं। हेड कांस्टेबल थे मेरे वालिद साहब। मोस्को में आखिरी बार जब उनकी ड्यूटी थी वो मोस्को थाने में थी, वहाँ से वो रिटायर्ड हुए। 8वीं के पढ़ने का घर के हालात थोड़े ठीक नहीं थे, तो जिस वजह से मैंने स्कूल छोड़ दिया। स्कूल छोड़ने के बाद मैंने कबाड़ की दुकान चालू की। मैं कबाड़ की दुकान चलाता रहा, तो तकरीबन 4 या 5 महीने कबाड़ की दुकान चलाने के समय में मेरे वालिद साहब बीमार हो गए, जिनकी टांग काट दी गई घुटने से ऊपर से। उन्हें शुगर था।
Joining us this evening, my colleague, WION's Islamabad Bureau Chief Taha Siddiqui, with us from Islamabad. G. Parthasathi, former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan, also the former Information Advisor at the Prime Minister's Office, with us from New Delhi. Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow at the Vivekananda International Foundation in New Delhi, and T.C.A. Raghavan, also former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan, with us from New Delhi. Good evening to all of you. Taha Siddiqui, to you first. Any reaction so far from Islamabad or Rawalpindi on the news that WION broke about 3 hours back?
Well, Palki, as it goes with such stories in Pakistan, when it talks about, militant groups who are conducting militant operations across the border, there's an absolute media blackout. The Pakistani media does not pick up these kind of news stories for reasons of self-censorship and for reasons of controlling of the narrative. So as of yet, I haven't seen anything that has come up on the Pakistani media radar.
Sushant Sareen, 9 years back, we heard the confession of another young Pakistani who was able to do much more, unleash terror on the city of Mumbai, talking about his address in Faridkot near Multan in Pakistan. And now this man, an 18-year-old, who narrates how he was recruited, how he was trained, how he was brainwashed into joining the Lashkar-e-Toiba.
Yeah, frankly, Palki, in the last almost 30 years, I don't think the modus operandi of either the terrorist organizations or, the way they infiltrate or the way they operate, I don't think that's changed much. If you go back 25 years, it was the same modus operandi. It was the same kind of a background, people who were in some amount of economic distress, who faced a kind of drudgery in their daily existence. Their family conditions were not that, comfortable. They were very easily seduced. This guy wanted to apparently become an actor. So he thought maybe he's entering into some kind of a reality show. But this was precisely the kind of cannon fodder that was picked up. Although back then, generally what you saw was that the LET guys picked up really hardcore committed people. They trained a whole lot of them, but the guys who actually infiltrated into Kashmir were really hardcore committed fanatics who would rather die than surrender or get arrested. In this guy's case, it's apparent that, he didn't have that same level of commitment, but he thought, he's going ahead and doing something really fabulous. And he got caught, and he probably didn't have the guts to die. So clearly, it also seems to suggest that maybe many of these terrorist organizations are virtually scraping the barrel, but they want to keep the pot, boiling. So they continue to send this cannon fodder into Kashmir, which is a good thing for India because that's easy picking for the security forces. There are less casualties when you are combating these kind of guys. But nevertheless, it also suggests that the terror factory is very much back in business. Although, again, without the kind of publicity which used to happen in the 90s and the early 2000s.
G. Parthasarathy, days after Hafiz Saeed was released from house arrest, which was also a farce, more proof of what his organization is doing under the garb of humanitarian work. This boy details everything. How do you see Islamabad reacting, if it reacts at all?
Look, I go along with what Sushant has said. From what I've seen about this boy's testimony, he does not appear to be the hardcore Lashkar type who generally recruited from northern Punjab, the Jung district and around. If I recall correct, this guy was picked up, started off somewhere in Karachi. Now, quite obviously, there is a falling in the motivation, what with Hafiz Saeed in jail and Zakir Rahman Lakhvi being sought after by us. But the fact is we've killed 200 terrorists this year, which is a record. The large numbers have been hit, and most importantly, at least during the operations last year, the surgical strike, at least 70 of these guys we got. I mean, those are the figures put out. One will have to get more on that. But the recruitment now will have to spread out, and therefore not necessarily as centralized and controlled. Previously, you had chaps like Lakhvi controlling the training and the motivation and so on. So, good news for us, the Lashkar isn't as sort of fanatical as it was earlier. Perhaps they're not getting enough recruits. But this is something we'll have to live with. I think there are, though we may have knocked 200 of them. The two things. One, the Kashmiri youth, there is now a conscious effort to wean them away. So more and more they will have to use the foreign jihadis who are most predominantly Punjab, from northern Punjab. The guys from southern Punjab generally join the Jaish-e-Mohammed. They are more Deobandi than Ahle Hadith. So yes, I think we'll have to live with this and deal with it. I think now that you're getting also your internal structures in place to reach out to the youngsters, and people are also getting tired. Parents don't want their kids going away the way as we saw recently with the football player and others. I think it's going to be more manageable in the future, despite what Pakistan tries.
Right. TCA Raghavan, is this your typical terror recruit, a poor boy who's struggling, who's then picked up? Incidentally, it was his family who contacted someone in the locality and said that after class 8 he did not want to study, so help him find rather a path in life, and that's how he ended up where he did.
By and large, it follows that pattern. What I find interesting is how this coincides with a new trend which we have noticed in the last 7 to 8 years, perhaps a little longer, of the emphasis which the Jamaat Dawa or the Lashkar-e-Taiba has placed on the Falai-e-Insaniyat. The Falai-e-Insaniyat is now a Pakistan-wide charitable network in terms of drought relief, emergency disaster relief, ambulances, and so on. So with the expansion of their network all over Pakistan, perhaps that also explains as to how they are getting recruits from the non-traditional areas of catchment areas of recruitment of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, which the earlier two experts mentioned. And this voice certainly seems to fit that particular bill.
Right. Ahmed Shaheen, Head of Special Investigations and a senior journalist at Geo News Pakistan, also joining us from Islamabad. Ahmed, your first reaction. This is a terror recruit of the Lashkar-e-Taiba who was operating or trying to operate in Kashmir, arrested by security forces, and exposes not just Hafiz Saeed, but also I'll play out that soundbite for you, where he shows how the ISI monitored the kind of training they underwent.
मुझे साथ ने कहा कि आप तोड़ा खासा करने के लिए जाओ.
So yes, it is the same old story. A young man being recruited by one of the faces of many organizations run by Hafiz Saeed and others which have been patronized by the state, usually the non-democratic governments in Pakistan. Pretty much, and I was listening to the statement, the recorded statement that has been released, and it reminded me of the Yadav statement as well. You know, once you're arrested, usually you want to say a lot of things that people would also want to hear. But the FIF, the Falai-e-Insaniyat Foundation of Hafiz Saeed, or the Lashkar-e-Taiba, or the Jamaat-ud-Dawa, all of them, they have been present in the local newspapers. They have legal rallies, you know, permitted rallies. They advertise in the newspapers. When I go from my work to my house, I see at least 2 FIF, Falai-e-Insaniyat Foundation, you know, booths where they collect money, where a lot of people come and talk to these people. So they are pretty much in the mainstream life of the urban areas, especially where we live in Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad. So, I mean, these people are operating. It's easy to just change a name and everybody knows it's the same people. They're operating, they're integrating with people who suffer hardship, economical hardships. And this person did not choose not to study, he just couldn't study. So he had another choice, which was, you know, earn some money, some tidbits from these, one of the faces of Hafiz Saeed's organizations.
In fact, let's dwell on this organization. I'll request you to stay with us. Falai-e-Insaniyat, that claims to be a humanitarian organization. The truth is, it's another front for Hafiz Saeed to recruit and train young men. And in the next clip that we'll play out for you here on Gravitas, Muhammad Amir tells us how, from the offices of Falai-e-Insaniyat, he ended up at terror launch pads in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.
हमारे इलाके में एक बंदा था, कारी मोहम्मद अमीन, जो लश्कर के लिए चंदा वगैरह करता था. वो हमारे घर से भी चंदा लेने के लिए आता था. उसने मेरे वालिद साहब ने उससे बात की कि ये ड्रग एडिक्ट है, ड्रग लेता है, तो इसे आप अपने साथ कोई ट्रेनिंग करवाओ, इसे कोई दावत तबलीग पर लेके जाओ. तो वो मुझे कुछ दूसरे दिन का उसने कहा कि आप दूसरे दिन मुझसे मिलना. मैंने घर से 2 जोड़े कपड़े के उठाए तो मुझे वो मिला जो मेरे स्टाफ के ऊपर. स्टाफ का नाम था अफरीदी बस स्टॉप. तो वहाँ पर एक एम्बुलेंस आई जिसके ऊपर FIF लिखा हुआ था. उस एम्बुलेंस ने मुझे बिठाकर वो नूरियाबाद लेकर आए. नूरियाबाद जब हम पहुँचे तो वहाँ पर एक खुला जैसा मैदान था. रात के 8 के करीब का समय था. तो वहाँ पर एक खेमा नुमा दफ्तर था जहाँ पर मुझे एक मूसा नाम का आदमी मिला जिसने हमारा इंतराज किया, हमारा नाम वगैरह लिखा और हमें मेरे पास जो पैसे वगैरह थे, जो करेंसी थी, वो सब उसने जमा की. और जो है ना, मुझे वो लेकर गया एक मस्जिद में जहाँ पर मेरे से पहले भी 10-15 लड़के बैठे हुए थे. मैं भी उनमें शामिल हो गया. हमें वहाँ पर खाना पीना मुफ्त दिया जाता था और जो है ना बकाया तकरीरें वगैरह और इसबाक हमें पढ़ाए जाते थे.
Also joining us, Vivek Karju, former Indian diplomat from New Delhi. Good evening, Mr. Karju. Let me begin with you here. Does it leave any doubt, if there were doubts to start with, that Pakistan in general and Lashkar-e-Toiba under Hafiz Saeed in particular is pushing terrorists into India. This 18-year-old is giving us as many details as possible about how this operation was conducted.
I think there is no doubt in anyone's mind, either in India or abroad, about the LET's involvement in promoting terror in India. And there's also no doubt in anyone's mind that the LET is an arm of the Pakistan state. I don't consider it I don't consider their terrorists as non-state actors. They are very much embedded in the Pakistan state. The question for India has always been, how are we going to handle this? Till now, I believe we've always been on the defensive. And that is because we do not, I feel, our political and strategic classes do not consider Lashkar terrorism or terrorism coming from Pakistan perpetrated by other groups as a strategic threat. I think we've reduced it to a question of political management in India. And that is where our focus has to be. The revelations this man is making, after all, are known. And it is, yes, it's of value that it is a reminder to us and to the world that these activities are happening in a very well-planned manner.
Sushant Sareen, do you agree that India's efforts so far to counter this threat are misguided?
Well, I wouldn't say they're misguided, but I think there needs to be a more robust kind of a response, reaction, maybe, even a kind of a payback for what the Pakistanis are doing. Because after all, if anybody thinks that talking good sense to the Pakistanis is going to help matters, I think we've tried it for so many years, it hasn't worked. So clearly we have to have a big stick that we can wield. Now what that big stick can be is a matter of debate, but I think there are enough options which are available. But what you need for those options to be exercised is a single-minded purpose, with which you are going to approach that problem. What happens in India is that if policy will change with the changing seasons, then I don't think you can ever have the kind of punitive measures which you could otherwise take, whether economic, whether covert, whether overt, all sorts of things are available. But you need to have a singleness of purpose. Now, in India, every 6 months, there is a certain brand of people in India who start getting withdrawal symptoms. Why aren't we talking to the Pakistanis? We've tried something, it hasn't worked. As far as I'm concerned, you try something for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years for it actually to start working. Because this is ultimately a kind of a battle of wills between two countries. And from the Pakistani side, at least, if not from the Indian side, certainly they see it as a civilizational conflict. And whether you look at these jihadis or you look at the jihadis in khaki, people like Musharraf and others, and their approach towards India, it's very clear that from the Pakistani viewpoint, it smacks of a civilizational conflict, not of a sovereign conflict or a conflict between two countries. So, we need to, if governments change and you change policy, if seasons change and you change policy, I'm afraid you'll never be able to come up with an adequate response to start curbing this menace.
PSG Parthasarathy, and Mohammed Amir talks about the first level of training which lasts for 15 days. He calls it the Dora-e-Sufa, where 15 boys from different locations in Pakistan participated. And this was a basic training course run by the Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jamaat-ud-Dawa, where participants are taught Islamic literature in order to radicalize them, he says. And he repeatedly mentions the Faleh-e-Insaniyat Foundation. He says infrastructure of this foundation is used to shift trainees of Lashkar-e-Toiba so that it's not noticed. Once again exposing the lie that Pakistan wants to maintain, that Hafiz Saeed is a humanitarian worker and these organizations are meant for humanitarian aid.
No, if Hafiz Saeed claims to be innocent and a sort of Pakistani version of the Pope, nobody is going to believe him. He is an internationally recognized terrorist, sanctioned by the UN Security Council, with a $10 million bounty on his head. So let's not continue with this comedy of which the Pakistanis put out about his being the representative of the Archangel Gabriel in Pakistan. But I go back to what I think my young friend Sushant said, and I agree with him. Look, I still recall a friend of mine who was a former DG of the ISI was once asked by some friends, what really is the aim of the ISI? Is it Kashmir? And his answer was very straight. He said, our aim is to weaken India from within, and we can do it. So they're going to use whatever tools they can. Kashmir is a convenient one where they can find some diplomatic rationale. But the attacks on Bombay or the attack on a Pune bakery or the attack on Hyderabad is hardly, and all of which came from across the border, are hardly a manifestation of their love for the Kashmiris or for the likes of Saeed Ali Shah Jilani. Therefore, I think we should deal with this in a long-term manner, not this, 1 minute of chappi chappi, as you say in Punjabi, and the next minute scowling at each other. Let us be very clear, as my friend the DG of the ISI remarked, weaken India from within. Now, unless we have a very clear strategic objective like that, and I'm sure the wise minds in our government do have ideas on that, I think that has to be followed relentlessly till this ends. Right now, I think they are feeling the heat on their western borders from Afghanistan. The army has to heavily deploy there, and therefore they are sort of modulating the two in a sort of synchronized manner. It isn't going to work, I think, till we make use of options for the very same objective as the ISI uses us, weakening India from within. We will continue this, we will go to America, we will go to the moon. It isn't going to get you anywhere. The Pakistan army now, incidentally talking of the internal politics of Pakistan, is the deciding organization. They have just now seen to it that the law minister is sacked after they got the prime minister removed. So their next election is going to be a government which ideally they would like headed by Imran Khan, but totally beholden to them. So they will do the backseat driving and they will continue doing what they are doing. They can't hold these positions unless they can make out that they are doing something vis-a-vis India. So let's be real. What worries me is these extreme swings in mood between irrational sort of hatred and on the other extreme, all oozing love and affection, and as they say, papi jappi in Punjab. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
You've got to be tough. You've got to be relentless.
Right. And
don't make a song and dance about it. We can always, get people for medical treatment. We can get people to see their relatives. Yeah, at a human level, be nice with them. But let's be real. They are now destroying Punjab through drug smuggling, in which the ISI is involved. Whom are we kidding? It's just a group of the Indian pseudo-liberal who keeps talking about dialogue and love and affection. Yeah, be nice to people, but treat the army ruthlessly as they treat you.
And when you have the Pakistan government itself admitting that terrorism is part of their culture and it's going to take them forever.
The Pakistan government is the army.
Yes, also the civilian government. I want to play a soundbite of Khwaja Asif, the statement that he made not very long ago, talking about how terrorism remains embedded, or terrorist organizations remain embedded in the Pakistani society. Listen into this.
At least 40 साल से ये हमारा जो कल्चर है या हमारा जो जिंदगी का हिस्सा है, मैं ईथॉस का लफ्ज़ इस्तेमाल कर रहा हूँ, मुझे कोई उसका ट्रांसलेशन नहीं मिल रही सही उसकी, एम्बेडेड है उसमें. अगर आप समझते हैं कि 40 साल का ये जो चीज़ जो है, जो आपके बदन में, आपकी कौम के, आपके वतन के बदन के अंदर जो चीज़ जो है एम्बेडेड है, उसको आप 2 साल में या 1.5 साल में निकाल लेंगे, तो ये एक गलतफहमी आप रख सकते हैं, मुझे ये गलतफहमी नहीं है.
Bringing you a WION exclusive, the confession of a terrorist. Mohammad Amir, an 18-year-old from Karachi, was nabbed by security forces in Kashmir only last week. During his confession, Amir said that he was trained by the Lashkar-e-Toiba multiple times before he infiltrated into Jammu and Kashmir. In the next clip that we'll play out for you, he tells the interrogators how he was trained under the eyes of the ISI and Lashkar terrorists.
मुझे साथ ने कहा कि आप तोड़ा खासा करने के लिए जाओ जब मुजफ्फराबाद में कैंप है, तो उसने मुझे वहाँ का जाने का किराया वगैरह दिया और मुझे पर्ची दी जिसमें सैफ-उर-रहमान नाम का जो बंदा था उसका नाम लिखा हुआ था कि भाई आपके पास आ रहा है और इसे अपने पास कबूल करो। तो मैं जब मुजफ्फराबाद पहुँचा तो वहाँ पर शुआई नाला एक जगह थी, मैं ऊपर पहाड़ी के ऊपर गया तो वहाँ पर एक उनका मरकज़ था जिसका नाम था बैतुल मुजाहिदीन। हम वहाँ पर पहुँचे तो ये पर्ची मैंने उन्हें दी। तो उसके बाद वहाँ पर एक लड़का और जो आज़ाद कश्मीर से आया था मौजूद था पहले का अबू हैदर, मैं और वो रात को 8 बजे के 9 बजे के करीब हमें एक आदमी लेकर अक्सा पहुँचा जो उनका ट्रेनिंग सेंटर था जहाँ का मेन ट्रेनर था सैफ-उर-रहमान। हमने वहाँ पर 4 महीने ट्रेनिंग की।
किस किस्म का अक्सा कैंप के बारे में बताओ, क्या किस किस्म का था?
अक्सा कैंप पहाड़ी के ऊपर कैंप था वो, तो छोटी छोटी पहाड़ियाँ थी जहाँ पर किसी जगह में उनका एक शेड बना हुआ था जिसमें मस्जिद थी। अच्छा, कुछ 2-3 शेड थे जिसमें उन्होंने घर वगैरह बनाए हुए थे। एक जगह में उनका किचन था और कुछ नीचे नाले की तरफ उनके बाथरूम वगैरह थे। और पहाड़ी जो मेन पहाड़ियाँ थी, पोस्टें उनके ऊपर एक उनकी पोस्ट बनी हुई थी, 4 पोस्टें थी उनकी। तो उसके बाद जब हम वहाँ पर पहुँचे तो उधर हमें 4 महीने हमने वहाँ पर ट्रेनिंग की जिसमें हमें GPS जिससे गूगल मैप पर चला जाता है वो हमें सिखाया गया, मैप की ट्रेनिंग हमें दी गई, मैप हमें सिखाया गया और हमें कैशे जैसे सामान किस तरह छुपाते हैं ज़मीन में वो हमें सिखाया गया। सर्वाइवल कि अगर खाना ना हो तो भूखा किस तरह रहना है हमें ये सिखाया गया। और हमें ये भी सिखाया, एमुनेशन की खोल जोड़ सिखाई गई और एमुनेशन के बारे में तफसीली इंटरव्यू हुआ कि यहाँ पर किस किस तरीके से एमुनेशन बना है, किस तरीके से ईजाद हुआ है। और लास्ट में हमें एक के 200 राउंड फायर करवाए गए।
Mohammad Amir was not just trained, he was radicalized during his stay in Lashkar camps. Hear him describe what he was subjected to.
मुझे लगता था कि वो ISI वाले हैं, तो वो आते रहते थे, उसके पूरे मान को गाइड वगैरह करते रहते थे। तो उसके बाद लास्ट में हमें वीडियोस दिखाई गई जिनमें कश्मीर के हालात के बारे में था कि वहाँ पर आदमी बहुत जुल्म करती है, आप उनके साथ जिहाद करना है। और हमें हाफिज सईद और रहमान के बयानात सुनाए जाते थे जिससे हमारा जज्बात को बढ़ाया जाता था। और हमने एक इंटरव्यू में बताया कि हाफिज मोहम्मद सईद लश्कर-ए-तैयबा जमात-उद-दावा और फलाह इंसानियत फाउंडेशन का मेन चीफ है। तो उसके बाद जब हमारी ट्रेनिंग ख़त्म हुई तो हम वहाँ पर 22 के करीब हम लोग थे जिसमें 20 जो थे वो घर वापस चले गए और हम 2 रह गए जिसमें अबू हैदर और अबू हमास में। तो उसके बाद हमें वहाँ से जब ट्रेनिंग ख़त्म हुई तो दूसरे के तीसरे दिन हमें लॉन्चिंग पैड जो मुजफ्फराबाद से तकरीबन 8 के 9 किलोमीटर के फासले पर था, हमें वहाँ लाया गया।
TC Raghavan, he's describing in painstaking detail what happened, how the ISI was part of the network that helped train these people. But it's not really surprised, but it would be interesting to see how the Pakistani establishment responds to something like this.
Well, to my mind, we will not get a response or any meaningful response from Pakistan. In any case, none of what this young man has said is new, and similar details have come out in the past too. The Pakistani mindset of denial on Kashmir is so strong that I doubt very much that this particular confession or the fact that this man is in custody will make much of a difference. The point really is that, and this is really where the larger picture is important, the point really is that these tactics have been tried by Pakistan now for over a quarter of a century, and they have not worked. They have not worked for one very simple reason, that the domestic consensus in India, cutting across all party lines, has been much stronger than what they anticipated. By the same token, the continuities in government policy have been much stronger than what is otherwise made out to be. All governments, when required, have used a fair amount of stick. The length of the stick has varied from time to time, but a fair amount of stick has been used by all governments. The point is the real outcome of the failure of these policies is very visible in the state of Pakistan itself today. Pakistan today, as compared to what Pakistan was in 1990, is a totally different picture. The fact is, Pakistan has burnt itself out in the process of trying to cause damage to India, bring about change in Kashmir, and while it has not succeeded at all in India, it has done to itself irreparable damage. This is the central question before most Pakistanis today. So while they would be unwilling to address the question of the failure of their policies with regard to Kashmir, because Kashmir has a certain iconic status in the minds of most Pakistanis, nevertheless, the consequence of the failure on their own society, on their own polity, and on their own country is so very visible that they cannot escape posing that question to themselves.
Ahmed Shaheen, there are more details that I'm looking at. Each individual who was supposed to cross the border from Pakistan into India was given a backpack weighing 40 kilos, containing dry ration, clothing, 1 AK-47, 150 rounds of AK ammunitions, 5 magazines, 4 grenades, a wireless set along with 2 antennas, 1 map, 1 compass, 1 GPS. They came here loaded. Then he goes on to describe that while they were trying to cross the border, there was firing, and he asked his guide what was this about, and the guide told him this was being done by the Pakistani army to give them cover fire to go inside the Indian territory. We've known that this happens, and once again, this is on record by a Pakistani who's been caught on Indian territory.
Yes, I'm sorry to bring you back to another point which you were discussing. I would like a Pakistani input in that as well. You asked one of your Indian colleagues, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? And I was surprised to hear the word that we need to give them a payback, we need to be tough. And you also played the video of Khwaja Asif, and Khwaja Asif was saying that yes, this is embedded, this has become kind of part of us now, and we need to get rid of it. But what you also need to play and understand, and India has to understand, is in the same speech of Khwaja Asif is talking about Hafiz Saeed, calling him a liability, talking about FIF and Jamaat-ul-Dawa, calling him a liability. So when you guys are saying, when my Indian colleagues and you yourself are saying that Pakistan is doing this, Pakistan is saying this, you need to understand which Pakistan are you talking about? Are you talking about the democratically elected government, the foreign minister of which is categorically calling Jamaat-ul-Dawa and Hafiz Saeed a liability and terrorists and something that we need to deal with? Or are you talking about the non-democratic forces, which allegedly in this statement of this young 18-year-old is also facilitating him in so many ways, allegedly, by giving him cover, by giving him all the ration and everything? So Indian colleagues and Indian politicians and everybody needs to understand, when you're saying Pakistan is doing this, what part of Pakistan is doing this? And the civilian government, the democratic process has enabled the civilian government and the vote bank to understand what terrorism is for us and for others. When we have snakes in our backyard, they're going to bite us too. And Pakistan as a nation and the democratic parties of Pakistan, a majority of them understand that. So if you band them together with the non-democratic forces, which have always been using terrorism and terrorists as a way to fight with India and other nations, destabilize the region, destabilize the democratic process in Pakistan. So if you're going to jumble all of them up, it does not help. So the answer to the question, how is India going to handle this, should be that India needs to understand that the enemy of the enemy is a friend. And right now, the political setup, the political government is an enemy of the terrorists. It is under immense pressure. And one way, and the only way to deal with this, would be to empower the Pakistani political government and the political forces and the civil society in Pakistan to stand up against terrorism and stand up against non-democratic forces, rather than, having considered everybody as enemies. Everybody is not your enemy.
Well said, Amar. I want to agree with you, but I can't because I saw what happened in Pakistan only last weekend. The civilian government bowed to fundamentalists, called in the army and made the law minister resign. And as far as from where I'm sitting, Pakistan is a monolith and we have to deal with that Pakistan. So drop the facade of a civilian government. Vivek Kaju, I'll let you respond.
It matters little to me about who is causing me harm from Pakistan, whether it is the civilian government or the military establishment. What matters is that harm is being caused to me coming from Pakistan. As far as the civil society and the civilian government in Pakistan is concerned, in the context of their battles against the military, they have to fight these battles themselves. No one else can fight these battles for them. And do they have to pay a price to fight these battles? Of course they have to pay a price. Any society which wants to remove the entrenched power sectors has to pay a price, and that our Pakistani friends will have to be willing to be prepared. Now, it also matters little to me about what is happening in Pakistan. If Pakistan, because of its policies against India, is harming itself, as indeed it has, as Raghavan has said, then that is something for Pakistan to decide. What matters to me is that there is harm coming to me emanating from Pakistan. And our focus in India has to be to stop that harm. And I regret to say, for the past 3 decades almost, we failed in this. I know that one can say that Pakistani terror is not really damaging our GDP or our economic progress, but it matters to me that Indian civilians, that Indian security personnel are dying at the hands of Pakistan, even if the number of deaths has come down. And I think as a state, it is our responsibility to prevent this. Now, this is the central question which I feel that our political and social and security classes duck. And that is why I submit to you that we treat it as a question of political management. And is there a long fight ahead? Of course it is. Does it require consistency? Yes, it does. Indeed. That is my central point. That the day we recognize that this is a security challenge, that this is a strategic challenge, then we will start addressing it. And as Raghavan so well put it, the stick will be there, and the length of the stick and its robustness will not be then subject to the whims and fancies of governments, because the state will get involved.
Amar, very quickly, I'm out of time. 30 seconds. Make your point.
The kind of the headmaster treatment, you're going to determine the length of the stick is not going to help. And yes, terrorism is your problem. And if you want to solve the problem, then you have to get to the bottom of this. What you're saying is, I don't want to get to the bottom of this. I think that's the policy shift that you might be interested in going towards.
We'll leave it at that. Thanks very much.
Intervene in Pakistan's domestic politics.
Thank you, gentlemen. G. Parthasarathi, T.C. Raghavan, Ahmad Shaheen and Vivek Kaju. And this is not the end of what we've heard from that 18-year-old whose confession we are playing out for you tonight on Gravitas. In the next part of the interrogation, Mohammed Amir describes what has been rather an open secret. He narrates the tale of how he crossed the border with the help of Pakistan's military.
हम 4 लोग थे, जिसमें अबू तिजाना बड़ा, अबू तिजाना छोटा, अबू हैदर और मैं। अबू तिजाना बड़ा को हमारा अमीर बनाया गया था। हम 8 मकाम लॉन्चिंग पैड पर आए, जहाँ पर हमने देखा कि एक मस्जिद थी और एक किचन बना हुआ था, एक स्टोर रूम था, जहाँ पर हमें अबू अनस नाम का एक आदमी मिला, जिसने हमें सामान वगैरह दिया, जिसमें हमारा राशन था। 4 पिटू थे, उनमें राशन था, ये खुशक राशन, ड्राई फ्रूट वगैरह, खाने पीने का सामान, और हमें एमुनेशन दिया गया। एमुनेशन में एक AK-47, 4 ग्रेनेड, JBGL वगैरह और GPS, कंपास, YSMS, वायरलेस सेट, ये एमुनेशन हमें दिया गया। हमने वहाँ पर नमाज़ पढ़ी और खाना वगैरह खाया। तो अनस ने कहा कि आप लोग रुको, मैं कोई काम है, मैं आता हूँ। वो गया और पाकिस्तान आर्मी से वो सेटिंग कर आया। इसके बाद हम वहाँ से चले और हम बॉर्डर के पास पहुँचने ही वाले थे कि वहाँ पर फायर शुरू हो गया। हमने अनस से कहा कि ये फायर क्यों हो रहा है। अनस ने कहा कि ये पाकिस्तान आर्मी है जो हमें कवर फायर दे रही है। तो हम वहाँ से हमने तार काटी और फायर तकरीबन पौना घंटा चलता रहा। हमने वहाँ से फेंस काटी और हम इंडिया के टंगडार वाले इलाके में आ गए, जहाँ से हमने GPS में GR डाला और हम आगे बढ़ गए।
Now to Bangladesh, where the High Court has delivered a verdict on a mutiny inside a paramilitary force. 139 mutineers will walk the gallows. Another 146 have been sentenced to life imprisonment. And this is being called the biggest ever criminal case in that country. But rights activists say the trial has been rife with procedural flaws. WION's Bangladesh Bureau Chief Saad Hamadi reports.
Behind me is the headquarters of Border Guard Bangladesh, which was previously known as Bangladesh Rifles or BDR. 8 years ago, a mutiny in this place had almost wiped out all the ranking members of the paramilitary force. Many theories had emerged about inside job and outside hands since. This is by far the biggest criminal case Bangladesh has witnessed by the number of people involved and the barbarism put on display.
"57 army officers and 17 civilians were killed in the carnage of February 2009. Jawans of the paramilitary force Bangladesh Rifles or BDR took up arms against deputed army officers, tortured, killed and later buried them in mass graves inside the headquarters of the force. All of this was apparently out of grievance for discrimination on their status and living condition. 8 years later, Dhaka's High Court has pronounced its verdict. 139 mutineers will have to die for their crime. Another 146 will serve life in jail. But defense lawyers and human rights groups say the trial procedure was flawed.
We had expectation to the Honorable High Court Division that they would get proper justice. But I think the Honorable High Court Division failed to assess the evidences properly, and they considered the gravity of the offense rather the evidences and materials against them.
The prosecution, however, says otherwise.
It is the most heinous crime in our country. So 74 people were killed by the BDR personnel. There is no reason. They are totally innocent army officer. They are superior officer, but this type of killing that was not supported by our law. So considering the evidences on record, rightly the High Court Division affirmed the sentences. So conviction and sentence totally based on the evidences.
Some 800 members of the paramilitary force were taken into trial in 2011. According to Human Rights Watch, at least 47 suspects of the mutiny died in custody of security forces during this time. Family members of the mutiny victims say that they will not find their dear ones back, but a trial should at least ensure justice. In Dhaka, Saad Hamadi, WION.
North Korea and the situation in the Korean Peninsula remains our focus. Manish Shukla will be bringing you many more exclusive special reports. That's all on this edition of Gravitas. Thanks very much for watching.